Back in 1692, several young girls in Salem, Massachusetts, fell ill with unexplained symptoms, including temporary blindness, skin lesions, convulsion, and hallucinations. The doctor didn't know what was wrong, so he diagnosed them with bewitchment. This diagnosis would lead to the subsequent persecution of those girls, starting the Salem witch trials. Over the next few months, over 150 men, women, and children would be accused as witches. But what led these people to believe the accused were witches? The belief in the supernatural emerged in Europe as early as the 14th century, specifically the belief that the devil could enter the souls of humans, controlling their minds and bodies. Back in 1484, Pope Innocent VIII issued a document that condemned witchcraft, and he authorized 2 men to combat the problem. Together, those 2 men produced a book, The Hammer of Witches, which contained imaginative stories based on folklore and provided guidelines on how to identify and eliminate witches. This book was accepted as the true authority on witchcraft and led to the persecution of countless individuals. This fear of the supernatural carried over to the colonies in America. In addition, those Puritan colonies suffered from the harsh realities of life at the time, including the after effects of a British war with France in the American colonies, a recent smallpox epidemic, and fears of attack from surrounding villages and Native Americans. This fear contributed to the mass hysteria surrounding the witch hunts and fueled suspicion and resentment toward any neighbors or outsiders. Overall, the accused witches were primarily poor, widowed women.
Although these examples may seem like another piece of history, witch hunts are still prevalent in modern-day societies. In India, between 2005 and 2015, 2,000 recorded people were murdered after being accused of witchcraft, according to India's National Crime Records Bureau. In response, the Republic of India drafted the Prevention of Witch Hunting Act, which passed into law in 2016. Any individual who is convicted of branding or identifying any woman as a witch is now subject to up to 5 years in prison, as well as associated fines. Since most of the murders are performed by groups of people, it has been difficult to attribute the crime to a single person. Sadly, the legal system in the Republic of India tends to be slow, and few have been convicted of witch hunting, and the murders have continued. India isn't the only country facing this devastating problem. In many rural parts of China, those who are deemed as poison givers are segregated from the rest of the community. Many of the locals in these communities believe that accepting gifts from those who have been labeled as witches can lead to the supernatural phenomenon of Zubu being transferred onto them and their families. This negative association has led to social isolation of these families and decreased opportunity for employment. Additionally, this social stereotype has led to partner selection being limited to those who have also been linked and labeled as witches, and may be causing inbreeding in these communities. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, communities are more violent in their treatment of witches. Children that have been suspected as being possessed by a supernatural force are given exorcisms on a daily basis with methods that involve a painful prodding by a priest. Additional punishments such as force-feeding human feces, isolation from family households, lynching, beatings to death, or burning alive. In the city of Kinshasa alone, approximately 50,000 children have been exiled from their homes and forced to live on the streets. Additionally, witchcraft is also blamed for many AIDS deaths in sub-Saharan Africa.
The neurobiology involved in creating and perpetuating these biases may include several different possibilities. Due to heavy religious and superstitious influences, anything that is unknown or out of the ordinary may be attributed to evil forces, creating fear memories that influence behavior and bias. The amygdala activation associated by making witches into an out group leads to groups learning to fear the accused witches. Making them into an out group may also cause less empathy to be felt toward them when they are hurt, as could be seen with decreased activity in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, an area that contributes to empathy and mentalizing. Additionally, this situation can increase stress and cortisol levels, leading to mass hysteria and mob mentality, as well as the creation of false memories. Groups under psychological and physical stress, who are often hungry, tired, or both, are most likely to have a case of mass hysteria. Context sculpts our interpretation of the world, and a stressful context can alter our behavior, as well as cause us to seek out other ways of coping. For example, when engaging in social activities and performing the same task as a group, oxytocin is released, causing a bliss response. This could cause individuals to seek group activities during times of stress. Additionally, trusting someone in your in-group is associated with activating reward mechanisms in the brain, but trusting someone in an out-group is associated with top-down control.
If she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood.
And therefore...
A witch! A witch!
Stressful contexts may also contribute to the formation of false memories or the false alteration of real memories, because the same mechanism in the hippocampus is used to both retrieve memories and for imagination of future tasks. The various contexts a person is experiencing at the time they retrieve a memory can alter it, causing witnesses to falsely testify against witches, truly believing they saw witchcraft, as well as causing accused witches to confess and even incriminate other accused witches. These false memories could lend an erroneous sense of legitimacy to the witch hunts. Mob mentality can cause individuals to commit to actions that their personal moral standards would not normally allow. The medial prefrontal cortex plays a role in social categorization and is associated with our reflections of who we are. This area shows increased fMRI activity when presented with in-group labels instead of out-group labels, even under the minimal context of red team versus blue team. This effect is associated with the level of group identification an individual has. Here we can see that even arbitrary distinctions can alter our behavior. Additionally, in fMRI, the medial prefrontal cortex showed elevated activity during individual tasks versus group tasks. Participants with a lesser difference in brain activity during group or individual tasks were more likely to harm members of a rival group. These participants couldn't as easily differentiate between group and self-values, and so identified themselves with the group mentality more strongly. This effect is amplified during situations that seem dangerous. University of Missouri researchers showed that the effect of in-group identification becomes even more intense when people feel mortally threatened. We turn to those in our in-group when we feel that we may be at risk of some type of physical harm. Professor Krauss of the University of Leeds conducted experiments that showed it takes only a minority of 5% to influence a group's direction, and that the other 95% can follow without realizing it. This, along with fear towards learned witch schemas and a stressful context, could contribute to the existence of witch hunts.
So what can we learn from this information? We are constantly using schemas to reaffirm the world around us. When these schemas cannot explain an occurrence, we begin to feel an internal loss of control, which leads to an increase in fear and therefore makes us prone to reconstruction in our memories. Group behavior and group thinking can have dangerous effects. These phenomenons can cause people to commit violent acts, such as mass witch hunts, and to feel justified in their actions. Similar neurological pathways may play a role in genocide. Additionally, fear and stress can lead to the creation of false memories and therefore can lead to incorrect testimonies in court cases, even when the subject believes they're being honest. The group we identify with help form our sense of who we are. We use these groups to check and reaffirm our behaviors and our biases.
So what can we do to combat these biases? Having public awareness that complex, false memories exist and recognizing that individuals can be led to generate those false memories is the first step. Countless evidence has shown that false memories are difficult to correct. However, current research by Fazio and Marsh found that when given feedback on answers, participants were able to correct over 2/3 of the errors in their memory. In their experiment, participants were presented with the sentences, then asked to later fill in the blanks, completing the sentences they were previously shown. In their results, they found that simply warning participants about false memories is rarely effective in preventing them. Instead, they found that feedback will lead to the most corrections, especially when the feedback contradicts subjects' expectations. From this experiment, we can see the importance in questioning individuals and not just following the group. False memories and false confessions also represent one of the main contributing causes of wrongful convictions. Researchers Shaw and Porter demonstrate in a study how 70% of participants can come to recall and confess to crimes that never occurred. The way questions are prevented can also affect one's memory. In an experiment, participants were more likely to falsely remember broken glass after a car crash when asked how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other versus when they hit each other. Therefore, having a better knowledge and awareness of false memories can help improve interviewing procedures to reduce the risk of inducing false memories and thus false accusations. So witches and witch hunts may seem like stories of the past, but their implications can still have large impacts in how we view and treat other groups.